fresh coat of paint, new locks on the doors. The promise of a new beginning, a new house. But what secrets linger within its walls? What echoes of previous lives refuse to fade? Welcome, intrepid homeowner, to Nightmare True Horror. Tonight, we cross the threshold into 7 true tales where dream homes became living nightmares. What unsettling discoveries have you made in the unexplored corners of a new abode? Share your own domestic dread, your stories of unsettling inheritances in the comments below. Let the creaking floorboards of fear carry your chilling accounts. And if you're brave enough to explore the shadows that come with a new set of keys, ensure you are subscribed. For Nightmare True Horror is always uncovering disturbing truths hidden just beneath the surface. Unpack your fears. These aren't just creaks in the night. These are warnings, and the most terrifying secrets are often the ones left behind by previous occupants, waiting patiently for your arrival. Let us now step inside. If you dare, I tapped the app, pulling up the attic camera feed. Static flickered, then cleared to show the dusty crawl space. Beams, insulation, shadows. Nothing moved. Move. I exhaled, heart still thudding, and chalked it up to a bug, maybe a rat. But as I flipped the eggs, the app buzzed again. Motion detected. The timestamp was seconds ago. I checked the feed. Same empty attic, but a shadow seemed to linger in the corner, too sharp for a trick of light. My mouth went dry. I grabbed a flashlight and a kitchen knife, the blades weight cold in my palm. The attic hatch was in the hallway ceiling, a pull-down ladder I hadn't touched in months. I tugged it open, the hinges screeching like a scream. Dust rained down, stinging my eyes. The air smelled stale. But there was something else, something sour, like sweat. I climbed, flashlight beam slicing the dark, my breath loud in the silence. The crawl space was cramped, boards creaking under my knees. Then I saw it. A stained mattress, shoved against the insulation, surrounded by candy wrappers and water bottles. Footprints, fresh in the dust, led to a corner where the shadows pooled. My pulse roared. Someone had been here, living here, living here. I backed toward the ladder. Knife raised. When I scrape, it came from behind the beams, slow, like fabric dragging. I swung the light, catching a glint. Metal. Maybe a tool, or worse. Nothing else moved, but the air felt heavy, like eyes on my back. I scrambled down, slamming the hatch, and called my friend Nate, a locksmith who'd helped me install the cameras. "You sure it's not kids?" he asked, voice crackling. "Check the footage, man." I pulled up the app's history. Clips from the past week showed flickers, brief shapes crossing the attic at night, too fast to make out. One clip from 3 a.m. yesterday froze my blood. A figure hunched, staring at the camera, face obscured by a hoodie. The clip cut out. My hands shook as I locked every door. The deadbolts conking not reassuring enough. Outside, the street was quiet. My neighbor's porch light a faint glow. But a gethumping echoed from above, deliberate like a footstep testing the boards. I texted Nate the clip. He called back. "Urgent. That's no kid, Luke. Get out, call the cops." I dialed 911, whispering to the operator, my eyes on the ceiling. Another kethumpo. Closer, then a low hum. A voice, muffled, chanting something I couldn't make out. The operator told me to stay calm. Police were 10 minutes out. I gripped the knife, backing into the living room, where my cameras covered every angle. The app buzzed. Motion detected. Living room. My heart stopped. The feed showed my couch, the lamp, me, standing there, knife in hand. But behind me, a shadow shifted, just out of frame. I spun, slashing the air, but the room was empty. The hum grew louder, coming from the walls now, vibrating in my chest. I checked the attic feed. Blank. The camera flying. A gate creak sounded from the hallway, the hatch slowly opening, the ladder unfolding with a groan. I ran to the front door, fumbling with the lock, but it jammed. The key stuck. The hum became words, low and raspy. "You shouldn't have looked." I bolted to the kitchen, barricading the door with a chair. The app pinged again, showing the attic feed back online. The mattress was gone. The footprint smeared, but a new detail caught my eye. A Polaroid, taped to the beam, showing me sleeping in bed, taken last night. My stomach lurched. I grabbed a hammer from my toolbox, hands slick with sweat, and crouched, listening. Footsteps, soft but deliberate, paced the hallway, stopping at the kitchen door. The knob rattled. Slow. Testing. Sirens wailed outside, red and blue lights flashing through the blinds. The footsteps retreated, a wash scrape fading toward the attic. Cops banged on the door, and I let them in, words tumbling out about the mattress, the photo, the figure. Officer Diaz, a stocky woman with sharp eyes, searched the house with her partner. They found the crawl space empty. No mattress, no wrappers, just my footprints. Could be a squatter, Diaz said, but her voice was tight. The Polaroid was gone. The camera feed now blank, like it had been wiped. They dusted for prints, found nothing but mine. Nate came over, his face pale as he checked the app's logs. Someone hacked it, he said. Someone hacked it, he said? Rerouted the feed. Watched you for weeks. The cops patrolled the neighborhood, but the streets were empty. I stayed at Nate's, unable to face the house. The next day, Diaz called. They traced similar break-ins nearby, linked to a drifter named Carl, a tech-savvy ex-con who targeted smart homes, living in their blind spots, obsessed with controlling his victims' lives. He'd been spotted in Portland, but vanished. I sold the house, moved to Seattle, got a basic apartment, no smart tech. But last week, a text came from an unknown number, a screenshot of my new place, taken from outside, my silhouette in the window. Below it, in jagged text, I'm still here. Carl wanted to own my fear, to live in my shadows. I keep a bat by the door, sleep with the lights on, but every creak, every flicker feels like him, watching, waiting for me to look up. The city's hum can't drown out the attic's silence. I'm safe, they say, but Carl's still out there, his lens on me, his footsteps just one thump away. The red toolbox sat in the corner of the basement for 3 weeks after I moved in. Heavy steel with a sturdy padlock. It was the only item the previous owners had left behind. My real estate agent had shrugged when I asked about it. Probably just forgot it. Want me to contact Mr. Denton about picking it up. I told her not to bother. The house needed work. A 1920s craftsman with good bones, but neglected details. And between my graphic design job and renovation projects, contacting the previous owners about an old toolbox wasn't a priority. But on rainy Sundays when I couldn't paint the exterior trim, the box called to me. It sat just at the edge of my awareness, a nagging presence whenever I went downstairs to do laundry. Its dull red surface collected dust, while I imagined the vintage tools it might contain. Perhaps valuable antiques worth more than the lock securing them. My curiosity finally got the better of me last Sunday. Armed with bolt cutters borrowed from my neighbor Pete, I descended into the basement's familiar chill. October rain drummed steadily on the small windows near the ceiling, casting wavering shadows across the concrete floor. The lock was surprisingly easy to break, the metal giving way with a satisfying snap. I lifted the lid, expecting the musty scent of old leather tool belts or the sharp tang of machine oil. Instead, I found neatly arranged rows of clear Ziploc bags, each containing what looked like dark clumps of material. Each bag bore a white label with handwritten text. I lifted one bag labeled Sarah M. 16 Park. The contents shifted in a sickeningly familiar way that made my stomach clench. Hair. Human hair. Thick strands of honey blonde, tied with a small rubber band at one end, as if cut directly from someone's ponytail. My hand trembled as I set it down and lifted another. David K. 12. Bus stop. Inside, short brown curls. I counted 27 bags total. 27 collections of human hair, each meticulously labeled with a name, age, and location. My phone was in my hand before I consciously reached for it, fingers hovering over 911. Then I hesitated, a cold rationality seeping through my shock. There could be an explanation: theater work, wig making, some bizarre art project. But the knot in my stomach told a different story. The precise organization, the clinical labeling, the secretive locked box hidden in the basement. I needed to know more about the Dentons before involving police. Oh, they were quiet folks, Pete said the next morning, leaning against his fence as I pretended to check my mailbox. Lived here maybe 4 years. He worked from home mostly. Information technology, I think. She taught piano lessons. Any kids? She taught piano lessons. I asked, trying to sound casual. No, no children. Pete scratched his gray beard. They kept to themselves. Nice enough when you talked to them, but never went out of their way, you know? Surprised everyone when they moved so suddenly. Tom, that's Mr. Denton, said it was a job opportunity in Oregon. Did they have many visitors? Students for the piano lessons? Pete's eyes narrowed slightly. Come to think of it, I never saw any students. Odd for a piano teacher, right? Why all of the questions? I forced a smile. Just curious about the history of the place. Back inside, I searched online for information about Tom and Iris Denton. Their digital footprint was minimal. No social media accounts. Just a basic LinkedIn profile for Tom showing employment at various tech companies. The only photo I found was from a local community newsletter 3 years ago, showing them at a neighborhood cleanup day. They looked painfully ordinary. Tom with thinning hair and glasses, Iris with a sensible bob and pleasant smile. I spent the afternoon searching missing persons databases for the names on the bags. Nothing conclusive came up. The labels only included first names and last initials, making matches difficult. Sarai could be any of dozens of missing Sarahs across the country. That night, I couldn't sleep. Rain continued to patter against my bedroom window as I stared at the ceiling, the faces of missing children floating through my mind. Around 3 a.m., I finally drifted off, only to jerk awake an hour later, certain I'd heard footsteps in the basement. Morning light revealed nothing disturbed. The toolbox sat where I'd left it, lid closed. Yet something felt different. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been in my house. Over the next week, my renovation projects stalled as I became consumed with researching the Dentons and the names from the toolbox. I created a spreadsheet, cross-referencing ages, potential full names, and missing persons reports from the past 5 years. 3 names yielded possible matches in a 100-mile radius, all children who had disappeared from public places with no witnesses. Sarah Martell, 16, last seen at Westlake Park. David Kinsler, 12, who vanished while waiting for his school bus. Zoe Wheeler, 9, who disappeared from a shopping mall. All still listed as missing, all with physical descriptions matching the hair samples. I called the police non-emergency line and left a vague message about finding something concerning left by previous owners. Officer Reed arrived that afternoon, young, with a military haircut and skeptical eyes. So let me understand, he said after I showed him the toolbox. You broke into a locked container left by the previous residents and found hair, human hair, I emphasized, with names and locations. Look at the labels. He lifted a bag, examining it with a dispassionate expression. Could be for theatrical purposes. Wig making, art projects. I showed him my spreadsheet. These 3 names matched missing children from the area. Officer Wright's skepticism wavered slightly. That's concerning, but common names could be coincidental. And this isn't enough for a warrant? He closed his notepad. I'll file a report and have someone contact the Dentons in Oregon. That's it. I couldn't keep the frustration from my voice. For now, without more evidence, this could be nothing. If you find anything else concerning, call immediately. He handed me his card. And Ms. Palmer, I'd be careful about pursuing this further on your own. After he left, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the toolbox. The officer's lack of urgency felt wrong, especially with 3 potential matches to missing children. Either he wasn't taking it seriously, or a chilling thought formed. What if they already knew something about the Dentons? That evening, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. tdenseron@securemail.com. We see you found our collection. The police won't help you. They never do. My blood ran cold. I checked the email properties, but nothing revealed the sender's location. How did they know I'd found the toolbox? That I'd contacted police? Were they watching the house? I double-checked all my doors and windows before crawling into bed with my phone clutched in my hand. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by every creak and settling noise in the old house. The next morning brought another email. Some collections are meant to stay private. We valued our privacy in that house. You should too. I forwarded both emails to Officer Ride, who called almost immediately. Miss Palmer, Do you have somewhere else you can stay for a few days? The urgency in his voice confirmed my fears. You know something about the Dentons? A pause. We've received similar reports before. Nothing conclusive, but enough to open a file. Similar reports? From where? Their previous residences. 3 cities in 10 years. Each time, they left suddenly. And the hair, my voice trembled. Another pause. Pack a bag, Miss Palmer. Don't tell anyone where you're going. I stayed at a motel 30 miles away, checking out after 2 nights when paranoia convinced me the desk clerk was watching me too closely. Officer Ride cold, with updates that weren't really updates. They were trying to locate the Dentons. Forensics was analyzing the hair samples. Detectives were interviewing neighbors. On my 4th night away, I realized I'd forgotten my medication. Rather than starting with a new doctor, I decided to risk a quick trip home at dusk, planning to grab my pills and leave immediately. The house looked undisturbed from outside. I unlocked the front door and stepped into the familiar entryway, listening intently. Nothing seemed out of place. Moving quickly upstairs to the bathroom, I grabbed my prescription from the medicine cabinet. That's when I heard it. A soft thump from the basement. Every instinct screamed to run, but a terrible curiosity rooted me in place. Someone was in my house, someone who might have answers. With my phone ready to dial 911, I crept down the main staircase and approached the basement door. It stood slightly ajar, though I was certain I had left it closed. A thin line of light seeped through the crack. I pushed the door open wider, wincing at the creak. The wooden steps leading down were empty, but I could see warm light pooling at the bottom. Not the harsh fluorescence I'd installed, but a softer glow. Hello? My voice sounded small in the stillness. No response, but the quality of the silence changed. Someone was listening. I should have run, called Reed, waited for backup. Instead, I took 1 step down, then another. At the bottom of the stairs, I discovered the source of light, candles arranged in a circle on the concrete floor. In the center sat the red toolbox, open, the bags of hair arranged around it in a pattern. And kneeling beside this macabre display was a woman with a sensible bob, her back to me. Mrs. Denton? My voice cracked. She turned, and I nearly screamed. It wasn't Iris Denton. At least, not as she'd appeared in the newsletter photo. This woman had the same haircut, same build, but her face was gaunt, eyes hollow with dark circles beneath them. She looked simultaneously older and younger than the woman I'd seen online. You shouldn't be here, she said, her voice surprisingly soft. It's not safe. I held up my phone. I'm calling the police. They won't understand. She gestured to the hair collection. They never do. That's why we keep moving. Did you? I couldn't finish the question. A sad smile crossed her face. Kill them? No. We saved them. From the shadows behind her, a figure emerged. Tom Denton, looking equally haggard. We tried to warn you to leave it alone. The emails, I whispered. He nodded. We monitor the house, the camera feeds. Standard precaution. My mind reeled. Camera feeds, they've been watching me this entire time. What did you do to those children? I demanded, finger hovering over the dial button. Iris touched one of the bags reverently. We collect when we can, when we see the signs, the shadows that follow them. Shadows? Tom stepped forward. Not everyone can see them. We can, dark shapes that attach to people, especially children. Following them, feeding on them. When we notice someone marked, we take a sample. A sample of their hair, I said flatly. Disbelief warring with fear. Hair holds energy, Iris explained, her expression earnest. When we take a piece, the shadow follows it instead of the child. We save them. I looked at the collection with new horror. You've been stalking children and cutting their hair? To protect them, Tom insisted. We've been doing this work for 20 years, moving when people get suspicious. Those children are missing, I said. Sarah. David. Zoe. Iris shook her head vehemently. No, we only take the hair. We never harm them. But they disappeared. The couple exchanged glances. Tom spoke softly. Sometimes, the shadows return, stronger. A chill ran down my spine as I processed the implication. You're saying something took those children after you cut their hair? Not because of us, Iris said desperately. Despite us. We try to save them all. but sometimes the shadows are too powerful. I didn't believe in shadows or supernatural forces, but I recognized delusion when I saw it. Dangerous delusion that had led this couple to stalk and assault children for decades. My thumb pressed 911. Don't, Tom warned, reaching into his pocket. We came back for the collection because we need it for the others. The ones still alive. The basement stairs creaked behind me. I spun around, expecting another intruder. No one was there. No one was there, but something was. A darkness deeper than shadow. Formless, yet somehow substantial. Hovering on the steps. It seemed to absorb the candlelight around it, creating a void where nothing should be. You see it now, don't you? Iris whispered. They follow our collection, drawn to it. That's why we need to move it regularly. Why we came back. The shape had no discernible features, yet I felt it watching me, assessing me. My phone slipped from suddenly numb fingers, clattering to the floor. What is that? My voice was barely audible. We don't know, Tom answered, but they're real, and they're hungry. The darkness pulsed, expanding slowly toward me. The air grew cold, carrying a scent like wet earth and decay. Take this. Iris pressed something into my hand. Scissors old and heavy. Cut a lock of your hair. Quickly. It's chosen you now. Terror froze me in place as the shadow elongated, stretching toward me like a curious finger. The rational part of my mind screamed this couldn't be happening. Shadows don't move independently, don't reach for people. Yet I could feel its attention, its hunger. My hands moved automatically, lifting a strand of my hair and cutting. The severed lock fell into Iris's waiting palm. She quickly sealed it in a new bag, labeling it with my name. The shadow paused, then redirected toward the bag. Iris placed it in the toolbox with the others and snapped the lid shut. It will hold for now, Tom said, lifting the box. But we need to go. And so do you. It's not safe here anymore. They vanished up the stairs with their grisly collection before I could respond, leaving me alone in the candlelit basement. I retrieved my phone with trembling hands and called Officer Reed. Within an hour, my house was filled with police. I told them everything, except about the shadow. That part remained locked behind my lips, too impossible to vocalize. They never caught the Dentons. The investigation revealed a pattern stretching back decades. Reports of strange behavior. Children reporting someone cutting their hair in public places. Sudden relocations, but no evidence of abduction or murder, despite the missing children cases. I sold the house 3 months later. Couldn't stand to live there knowing they had cameras hidden somewhere, watching. Knowing what had happened in that basement. Sometimes I wake up certain I see shapes darker than darkness moving across my bedroom ceiling. I tell myself it's just dreams, just trauma, just an overactive imagination influenced by the delusions of two mentally ill people. But I keep my hair cut short now. And sometimes when I'm alone, I swear I feel something watching me, patient and hungry, waiting for my guard to drop. The Denton's collection is out there somewhere, growing, and sometimes I wonder if really keeping something at bay, or drawing it closer. The house was a steel, a 1920s craftsman with good bones. Perky realtor Diane chirped. Mr. Fletcher lived here 50 years, quiet as a mouse. I'm Sarah Novak, a librarian fresh from a divorce, craving a new start in this Ohio town. The lemon polish in the air barely masked a stench like old meat rotting in a lunchbox, seeping from the oak floors. On day 3 of renovations, I pried a loose baseboard in the basement, revealing a hidden latch. The door groaned open, exhaling mildew and a blood iron tang. Soundproofing foam hung in shreds, clawed apart. Restraints dangled from rusted bolts, their leather cracked. The floor tiles were stained deep brown, save for one pristine spot where a tiny red sneaker sat, laces neatly tied. Nike Cortez, size 5, 2017 model. My stomach lurched, too small for an adult. Diane's smile faltered over the phone. Oh, that old root cellar. Fletcher stored potatoes there. Her voice cracked, too quick. I hung up, my hands shaking, the sneakers red glaring under the bulb. Sheriff Daniels arrived in 15 minutes, his boots scuffing the stairs. Animal blood. he said, towing the sneaker. Coons get trapped, panic. His Adam's apple bobbed, eyes avoiding the restraints. Tear down the wall. Liz Novak. Move on, he left. Radio crackling about a disturbance downtown. Google auto completed. Missing girl with red sneakers, Ohio. Before I finished typing. Lila Martinez. 8, vanished en route to school. 2018. Her pigtail-framed dimples grinned from my screen, her sneaker matching the one downstairs. My breath caught, the basement light flickering above. That night, I borrowed a UV pen from my toolbox. The walls glowed with scratches, marks, 37, etched into plaster. Some were small, like a child's hand. I locked the basement door, my pulse hammering, and checked Diane's number. Her office was closed, sign gone from the window. Mrs. Carney, my neighbor, leaned over her fence, pruning shears in hand. Fletcher's at Greenhaven nursing. Dementia. Her voice dropped. His nephew, Jason, trouble. Paroled last year. Folks say he lingered here. She glanced at my house, lips tight. The sex offender registry confirmed it. Jason Fletcher, 38, paroled 2022. Convicted of assault in 2015. His mugshot stared, eyes flat, a red licorice twist in his teeth. My skin crawled. Lila's case mentioned candy found near her bus stop. Greenhaven nursing reeked of ammonia and despair. Mr. Fletcher sat in a wheelchair, hands fluttering like moths. Jason's a good boy, he rasped, clutching a licorice stick. Keeps things quiet. His eyes clouded, darting to the window. A nurse ushered me out, whispering, he rambles about a quiet room. My phone buzzed in the car. A text from Diane's number. Stop digging. For your sake. I sped home, locking every door, the sneakers red burning in my mind. The basement door was ajar, though I'd bolted it. Footsteps echoed below, deliberate, heavy. Jason stood in the hidden room, licorice twists dangling from his lips, his fingers tracing the restraints. Uncle's house, my house. His voice was soft like a lullaby. Girls screamed too much. Needed quiet. Lila fought, but the quiet ones, they last. His boots crunched glass. A broken bulb, rigged to fall. I lunged for the stairs, but his hand clamped my ankle, yanking me down. You're loud, Sarah, he hissed. Duct tape in his free hand. I kicked, my heel catching his jaw, and scrambled through the room. A trap snapped, a chain hidden in the foam, grazing my leg. Jason laughed, a knife glinting, licorice scent choking the air. I grabbed a loose bolt from the floor, hurling it at his face. He staggered, and I sprinted, slamming the basement door, barricading it with a toolbox. I dialed 911, gasping, but Jason's boots thudded closer, the door splintering. Sirens wailed outside. Daniels, flashlight sweeping, found me curled by the stairs. Jason lay in the room, my utility knife jutting from his throat, blood pooling around Lila's sneaker. Polaroid scattered the floor. 23 girls, eyes wide, taped to walls etched with pleas. Help! Lila! 2018. Self-defense, Daniels muttered, avoiding the photos. He bagged the sneaker, his hands shaking, and promised an investigation. Diane vanished, her office leased to a new agent. The town whispered of bad blood in the Fletcher family, but no arrests followed. I sold the house to a young couple, Diane's old listing reborn as a charming fixer-upper. I moved to a Cleveland apartment far from basements, but last night, a package arrived, no return address. Inside, a red licorice twist in a tiny sneaker, left foot matching Lila's. A note in looping script, my quiet neighbors are the best. New owner. My new walls creaked, a faint scratch echoing from below. This morning, my UV pen caught a tally mark on my closet door. 38. The walls have secrets preys on the illusion of safety within four walls, and the rot passed through generations. The true horror isn't the monster. It's the key in your hand, turning a lock others have bloodied, and the scratches that follow you. Sweet dreams. I bought the house on Evergreen Lane because I needed a fresh start, far away from the noisy city, from broken relationships, and crowded apartment complexes. The neighborhood felt safe, ordinary, lawns neatly trimmed, bicycles leaning casually on porches, Kids laughing in yards. It seemed perfect. Almost too perfect. The first day, while unloading boxes from my car, Helen knocked on my door, early 50s, glasses perched on her nose, wearing a homemade apron that read "Welcome to Paradise." She held a basket covered with a checkered cloth. "I'm Helen," she smiled warmly, handing me the basket. "I live just next door. Be good, you'd be hungry." "Thanks," I replied, genuinely grateful. Beneath the cloth, the smell of freshly baked muffins wafted out. "This is really nice of you." "Oh, it's tradition," she said cheerfully. "The Evergreen Lane welcome wagon, you know." I chuckled, relaxing for the first time in weeks. Maybe things here really would be different. But then the welcome wagon didn't stop. Every few days Helen appeared, always unannounced, holding casseroles, cookies, small gifts like handmade potholders and candles. At first it seemed sweet, if a bit persistent. I brushed away discomfort as simple paranoia. Helen was older, probably lonely. Nothing sinister about kindness, right? Then I started noticing the details she seemed to know. Little things she'd mentioned casually during her visits. "How was your yoga class this morning? You must love that studio on Main Street." I paused, muffin halfway to my mouth. I hadn't told her I did yoga, certainly not where. But maybe she'd seen me leaving, coincidence or harmless observation. A few days later, as she placed another casserole into my hands, she smiled knowingly. "Late night at the office yesterday, huh?" "How'd you?" I stopped abruptly. I'd indeed stayed late, but how could she have known? "Oh," she waved dismissively, eyes twinkling oddly. "Lights off later than usual." I noticed these things. She lingered in my doorway longer each visit, asking increasingly personal questions. Family, friends, romantic interests. Her smiles were warmer, her laughter closer, as if we shared secrets I never told her. Sleep became elusive. Every shadow outside my window felt heavy, watchful. One evening, exhausted and unnerved, I pulled into the driveway and noticed something odd under my car's rear bumper. Kneeling, pulse quickening, I reached beneath and found it. A tiny black box, blinking with a faint red light. A GPS tracker. My blood turned ice cold. I called the police, my voice shaking, explaining everything. Officers arrived shortly, listening patiently, but skeptical. They asked about ex-partners, grudges. When I pointed at Helen's house, their faces softened dismissively. "You sure it's not a misunderstanding?" One officer asked gently. "Helen's lived here forever. Harmless, as far as we know." They removed the tracker, promising a patrol, but left clearly unconvinced. That night, sleep fled entirely. I lay awake, every creak magnified. Around midnight, my phone buzzed softly. An unknown number. A single text. "Why'd you take my present away?" Terror punched through my chest. A sharp knock sounded at my back door, sudden and loud, heart hammering painfully. I moved cautiously toward it, gripping a kitchen knife tightly. Through the glass stood Helen, face partially shadowed, smiling innocently. "Sorry, did I scare you?" Her voice muffled slightly through the door. "It's late, Helen," I managed, voice trembling. "What do you need?" "Just wanted to check in," she said lightly, eyes strangely bright under porch lights. "Heard the police visited. Everything all right? How'd you—" "I noticed things," she repeated softly. Her gaze drifted to the knife in my hand, her smile twisting slightly. "Feeling unsafe, dear?" I slammed the door shut, locking it quickly. My breathing ragged, I stood there, panic swelling like floodwater. 2 days later, a box appeared on my doorstep, neatly wrapped, topped with a ribbon. Inside lay photographs, me grocery shopping, leaving work, sleeping soundly in bed. My stomach turned violently. Beneath the photos, a note. "It feels good watching over you." I ran outside, furious, scared. Helen stood calmly watering flowers next door, humming cheerfully. "What do you want from me?" I shouted desperately, voice cracking. She looked up, smiling gently. "Just making sure you feel welcome. It can be so hard being alone. Stop it," I begged, fear blurring into anger. "Stay away from me." Her smile faded slightly, replaced by quiet disappointment. "You shouldn't reject kindness, dear. It's very rude." Later that evening I sat, hands trembling, calling locksmiths, planning a security system installation. But before I finished dialing, the power went out, plunging me into darkness. Silence suffocated the house. From upstairs came a faint scraping, metal on wood. Someone inside. My blood ran cold. Moving cautiously, flashlight shaking violently in hand, I climbed slowly up the stairs, each creak impossibly loud. The scraping noise grew clearer, nearer, coming from my bedroom. I reached the open doorway. Moonlight spilled through the window, illuminating Helen calmly, placing something beneath my pillow. She turned slowly, smiling sweetly. "I knew you'd find your way here," she whispered, eyes glittering strangely. "We're finally alone. Helen, please." My voice shook. "You remind me so much of her," Helen continued, voice breaking slightly. "My daughter, Sam H. when she left me." She stepped forward, eyes glistening now, almost tender. "Don't you see? I've given you everything. My time, my attention. But you reject it. I'm not her," I whispered hoarsely, legs trembling. "Please." Her face darkened suddenly. "Then why did you move into her house?" Confusion filled me. "What?" She shook her head, voice cold, bitter. "This was her home. Then she left me. Just like you're trying to now." She moved swiftly, grabbing my wrist, nails digging painfully into skin. I struggled violently, heart slamming. She whispered harshly, urgently, "If you leave, I'll have to stop you. I can't lose her again." Fear exploded into desperation. I pushed hard, shoving Helen away. She stumbled backward, tripping over a chair, hitting the floor sharply. Silence followed, unbearable. Police found her unconscious, alive but injured, mumbling incoherently about her daughter. They explained later, Helen's daughter had disappeared decades ago. Runaway or victim unknown. Helen never recovered, obsessively welcoming young women who moved into the neighborhood, desperately replacing her loss. But her kindness twisted into something predatory, dangerous. I moved again, far away. But sleep never fully returns, tainted by memories of casseroles, friendly smiles, and hidden trackers. Late at night, alone in my new house, I still wake suddenly, certain I hear gentle knocking at the back door, a soft voice whispering through shadows, "Welcome home." The keys to the old Hemlock place felt heavy in my hand, a tangible symbol of a new, quieter chapter. My name is Anna, a potter, and the city's relentless noise had finally driven me to seek solace in the rural quiet of upstate New York. The house itself was a rambling two-story farmhouse, needing more than a little love, but it was the sprawling, untamed garden that had truly sold me. Tucked away at the far end, almost swallowed by a thicket of ancient lilac bushes, was an old fieldstone well. Its circular opening was sealed shut with a heavy, rough-hewn slab of concrete, gray and weathered. A relic, I thought. A footnote in the property's long history. Benign. The first few weeks were a blur of unpacking, painting, and the satisfying ache of physical labor. The silence of the countryside was a balm. Then came the first night I heard it. I was drifting off to sleep. The house settled into its nightly symphony of creaks and groans, when a faint sound pricked my consciousness. Thump, 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 pause. Then again, thump, thump, thump. It was rhythmic, muffled, seeming to come from outside, from the direction of the garden. I lay there, heart suddenly alert, straining my ears. It wasn't an animal. It was too regular, too deliberate. Curiosity, stronger than my unease, pulled me from bed, flashlight in hand. I crept downstairs and out into the cool night air. The sound was clearer now, though still faint. I followed it, my bare feet damp on the dewy grass, until I stood before the old well. The sound was coming from within it, from deep beneath that sealed concrete cap. Thump, thump, thump. A cold dread trickled down my spine. The next morning, in the bright, unthreatening sunlight, I examined the well closely. The concrete cap was at least 6 inches thick, rough poured, with no visible seams or cracks. It looked like it hadn't been disturbed in decades. How could any sound escape from something so solidly sealed? And what could possibly be making it? I tried to dismiss it. Old pipes, shifting earth, my imagination working overtime in a new, isolated environment. But the banging returned the following night, and the night after. Always the same rhythm. Thump, thump, thump. Always faint, always from deep within the well. Sleep became a battleground. I'd lie awake listening, the silence of the house amplifying the unsettling cadence from the garden. My work suffered. My quiet sanctuary was becoming a place of creeping anxiety. I started researching the history of the property. The local historical society had little, just old maps showing the farmhouse and its surrounding land. The previous owners, an elderly couple who'd moved to Florida, the realtor had said. Before them, the records were patchy. I found a faded newspaper clipping from the 1950s mentioning a minor dispute at the Hemlock farm, but no details, nothing about the well. The psychological toll was mounting. Was I losing my mind? Was I losing my mind? I tried recording the sound on my phone, but the microphone picked up nothing but the chirping of crickets. I even invited my friend Mark over from the city, hoping he'd hear it too. He stayed the night, listened patiently, but heard nothing. "Anna," he said gently, "you're probably just stressed from the move, the isolation. This old house is probably just settling in weird ways." He thought I was imagining it. Maybe I was, but the banging persisted. A secret torment only I seemed privy to. One afternoon, driven by a desperate need for answers, I was clearing the overgrown brush around the well. My shovel struck something hard buried in the soil near its base. A rusted, heavy crowbar and a length of old, frayed rope, caked with dried mud. They looked like they'd been there for a very long time. Had someone else tried to open this well, or to seal something within it more securely? The air around the well felt colder now. The silence between the nightly episodes of banging more pregnant, more menacing. I started having nightmares. Dark, watery depths. A sense of being trapped, the rhythmic thudding echoing in my skull. The climax came during a fierce thunderstorm. Rain lashed against the windows. Wind howled through the eaves, and the power flickered and died, plunging the house into a suffocating darkness. And amidst the storm's fury, the banging from the well was louder than I'd ever heard it. More frantic, more desperate. Thump! It was as if whatever was down there was energized by the storm, or perhaps using its noise to amplify its own. Fear, cold and sharp, warred with an unbearable, consuming curiosity. I couldn't live like this anymore. I had to know. Grabbing my heaviest flashlight and the rusted crowbar I'd found, I stumbled out into the storm, towards the well. The rain plastered my hair to my face. The wind threatened to rip the flashlight from my grasp. At the well's edge, the banging was a palpable force, vibrating up through the soles of my feet. I jammed the tip of the crowbar into a tiny fissure I discovered earlier in the concrete cap, a place where the seal wasn't quite perfect. I put all my weight on it. The old metal groaned. For a moment, nothing. Then, with a sickening crack, a small section of the concrete broke free. A gust of foul air rushed out, damp, earthy, and carrying a stench so putrid, so overwhelmingly like decay, that I gagged, stumbling back. The banging stopped. Instantly, the silence that followed was more terrifying than the noise. My flashlight beam, shaking violently, pierced the small, jagged opening. I couldn't see much, just blackness. But then, something glinted deep within, a pale shape caught in the beam. Not stone, not earth. It looked. I didn't wait to see more. I scrambled back to the house, my mind reeling, the stench clinging to me. I called the police, my voice a hysterical babble about the well, the banging, the smell, the bone. They came, of course, skeptical at first then, as they began the arduous process of breaking open the rest of that concrete seal. Their faces grew grim. It took hours. What they pulled from the depths of that old well wasn't a forgotten animal or shifting debris. It was human remains. Several sets, in fact. Some decades old, according to the initial assessment. Others, disturbingly recent. The well had been a dumping ground, a secret tomb. For years, the rhythmic banging. The forensic team theorized it could have been caused by shifting water levels or decomposing gases periodically dislodging the remains against the well casing or the underside of the concrete cap. A grotesque, natural percussion. Or perhaps it was the house settling, its vibrations traveling through the earth, amplified by the hollow chamber. They couldn't be sure. The previous owners, the elderly couple who'd moved to Florida, were never found. The investigation into the Hemlock Farm's dark history is ongoing. A grim tapestry of missing persons and whispered local rumors finally being pieced together. They found out the minor dispute in the 50s involved the original Hemlock patriarch, a man known for a violent temper and for laborers on his farm who would sometimes disappear. It seems the tradition may have been passed down, or the well's gruesome secret rediscovered by subsequent inhabitants. I moved out, of course. The house, my quiet sanctuary, is now a place of yellow police tape and whispered news reports. I still hear the banging sometimes, in my dreams. Thump. Thump, thump. A chilling echo from beneath the earth. A reminder that some secrets don't stay buried, and some old wells hold more than just water. They hold the silent, rhythmic pleas of the lost, waiting for someone to finally listen. I sat on the cold concrete, the receipts spread before me, their edges curling. My heart thudded, the basement's bare bulb flickering overhead, casting jagged shadows. The previous owner, a quiet man named Harold Vance, had sold the house and left town, or so the realtor said. I stuffed the receipts back into the box, my hands trembling, and climbed upstairs, locking the basement door. Ethan was at school, the house silent except for the hum of the fridge. I tried to shake it off. Maybe Harold was a DI nut, but the list gnawed at me, each item a piece of a dark puzzle. I called my friend Mia, a nurse who lived 2 streets over. That's creepy, Jess, she said, her voice low. Could be landscaping stuff, but check the house, just in case. I laughed it off, not wanting to scare Ethan, but after he went to bed, I searched the basement again. The air felt heavier, the bulbs flicker more erratic. I tapped the walls, finding nothing but solid concrete, until my knuckles hit a hollow spot behind a shelf. I pushed it aside, revealing a patch of drywall, newer than the rest, its edges uneven. My flashlight beam caught scratches on the drywall, faint but frantic, like nails had clawed it. A gold it echoed from above, sharp, like a door closing. I froze, pulse racing, and listened. The house was still, but the basement felt alive, its shadows shifting. I ran upstairs, knife in hand, and checked every room. Empty, Ethan snoring softly. The front door was locked, but the back door's knob was loose, jiggling under my touch. I wedged a chair under it, my breath shallow, and texted Mia. Something's off. Come over tomorrow. Sleep didn't come. At 2 a.m., a Y-scrape woke me, slow and deliberate, from the basement. I grabbed the knife and flashlight, heart pounding, and crept to the basement door. It was ajar, though I'd locked it. The Y-scrape became again like metal on concrete from the hollow wall. I descended, the stairs groaning, and aimed the light at the drywall. A crack had appeared, thin but new, dust trickling from it. My mouth went dry. I backed away, the bass scrape stopping, replaced by a low hum, a voice muffled behind the wall. I ran upstairs, barricading the door, and called the police. The operator told me to stay calm. A patrol was 5 minutes out. The hum grew louder, words forming, "You found it." My skin crawled. I checked on Ethan, still asleep, and clutched the knife, eyes on the basement door. Headlights flashed outside, and Officer Reed, a stocky cop with tired eyes, knocked. I spilled everything. The receipts, the wall, the sounds. He searched the basement, his flashlight sweeping the crack, now wider, revealing darkness beyond. Could be plumbing, he said, but his voice wavered. He promised to send a detective. Mia came over at dawn, her face pale as I showed her the receipts. Harold was weird, she said. Saw him at the store once, buying bleach, staring at me like he knew me. We searched online, finding a missing persons report. Clara Dunn, a cashier, vanished last year near the hardware store. Her photo matched one Ethan had found in the backyard, half buried, now tucked in my drawer. My stomach churned. I called Detective Lowe, who arrived with the forensics team. They pried open the drywall, revealing a crawl space, its floor stained dark, a sour stench spilling out. Inside, a tarp, duct tape, and a shovel, items from the receipts. That night, I stayed at Mia's, Ethan confused but safe. A guy humpum woke me, not from her house, but my phone. A notification from my security app, installed after the move. The basement camera, motion triggered, showed a figure, tall, shadowed, standing by the crawl space, holding Clara's photo. The timestamp, an hour ago. I called low, my voice shaking. Police swarmed the house, finding the camera tampered. The feed looped. The crawl space held more. A locket, Clara's, and a man's ring, engraved. Low dug into Harold. He'd been a recluse, no family. A handyman with a rap sheet. Assault stalking. Neighbors reported him digging at night, loading his truck with heavy bags. The crawl space stains tested positive for blood. Clara's and others. Harold's motive was control, a need to erase those who crossed him. Like Clara, who'd rejected him. He was gone, but someone was still in my house using his tools. The climax came at midnight, back home to grab Ethan's clothes. I heard the yeast scrape again, from the basement. I grabbed a hammer, heart roaring, and descended. The crawl space was open, the tarp gone. A man, gaunt, gray-haired, not Harold, stood there, clutching the locket, his eyes wild. "She was mine," he snarled, lunging with a knife. I swung the hammer, catching his jaw, and ran, his footsteps pounding behind. I locked the basement door, police sirens closing in. They caught him, Earl, Harold's cousin, a drifter who'd helped hide the bodies, obsessed with finishing Harold's work. Earl confessed. They'd killed 6 women, buried them in the woods. The receipts their checklist. He'd watched me, lived in the crawl space, waiting to silence me. The cops found remains, linked to the locket. I sold the house, moved to Madison with Ethan. But last week, a package arrived. No address, just a receipt for bleach dated yesterday. On it, in jagged scrawl, "I'm not finished." I keep a bat by the bed. Check the locks, but every good thump, every shadow, feels like Earl or Harold's ghost. Still digging. The new apartment's walls are thin, the city loud, but the basement's stench lingers. Ethan sleeps close, but I know someone's out there. Their list incomplete, my name next. The first time I entered the basement of my new home, the air carried a peculiar chill that had nothing to do with temperature. Having escaped Boston following my divorce, I'd found this charming Victorian in rural New Hampshire at a price that seemed too good to be true. The listing had mentioned partial basement storage, but nothing about the 3 antique trunks pushed against the far wall, their brass latches dulled with age. When I asked my realtor about them, she'd shrug. Previous owner must have forgotten them. Mr. Harmon left in quite a hurry. Family emergency, I believe. If you want, I can try contacting him. I declined her offer. After unpacking the essentials upstairs, I was too exhausted to worry about abandoned luggage. Besides, there was something almost decorative about them, like props from another era that complemented the home's century-old charm. For 2 weeks, I settled into small-town life. My neighbors were friendly but reserved, offering waves from driveways rather than the welcome baskets I'd half expected. I wrote during mornings, took long walks in afternoons, and tried to forget the messy end to my 10-year marriage. The trunks remained untouched, relegated to background objects in my consciousness. Until the night the storm came. Rain lashed against the windows as thunder shook the old house to its bones. When the power failed, I stumbled down to the basement with my flashlight to check the circuit breaker. As lightning briefly illuminated the space, I caught sight of something I hadn't noticed before. A newspaper clipping that had slipped halfway under the smallest trunk. Curiosity drew me closer. Kneeling on the cold concrete, I tugged the yellowed paper free. The headline made my pulse quicken. Local woman still missing after 3 weeks. The article was dated 2017, just 3 years ago. The woman's photo showed someone about my age, with my build and hair color. I looked at the 3 trunks with new eyes. Why had Mr. Harmon left them behind? What else had he forgotten when he departed so suddenly? The smallest trunk's lock was simple. A basic padlock that yielded to a paperclip and some patience, a questionable skill from my rebellious youth. Inside lay precisely folded clothing. Women's clothing. That clearly didn't belong to an older man like Harmon. Beneath the clothing, wrapped in plastic, was a driver's license belonging to Rebecca Tillman. The missing woman from the article. My hands trembled as I carefully closed the trunk, locked it, and backed away. This had to be a mistake. Perhaps Harmon had collected items for a donation that never happened. Perhaps Rebecca had been found, and the story had a happy ending. But when I researched online the next morning, Rebecca Tillman was still listed as missing. I should have called the police immediately. Instead, I convinced myself I needed more evidence. That night, I returned to the basement with better tools. The second trunk, larger and heavier, took longer to unlock. But when the lid finally creaked open, any lingering doubt evaporated. Hunting knives of various sizes lay in a custom-fitted case. Beneath them, coils of rope, handcuffs, and restraints. And most damning of all, a methodically organized collection of newspaper clippings spanning 15 years, all covering local disappearances. Some articles were annotated in precise handwriting. To public, perfect opportunity, no witnesses. My stomach lurched. I was living in a killer's house, sleeping above his trophies. The third and largest trunk remained locked, its heavy-duty padlock requiring more than my amateur skills. Part of me didn't want to know what it contained. The rational side of my brain screamed to call authorities, to run from this house and never return. Instead, I found myself at Sophie's diner the next morning, casually asking about the previous owner between sips of mediocre coffee. Howard Harmon? The waitress lowered her voice. Quiet man. Kept to himself mostly. Taught high school biology for nearly 30 years before retiring. Did he have family? I asked, striving for casual interest. Not that anyone knew of. Just disappeared one day. Told the neighbor he had a family emergency back east. She leaned closer. Between us, some thought he was running from something. There were rumors. What kind of rumors? She glanced around before continuing. Well, he was always hiking, taking photos of young women from a distance. Said it was for his nature photography, but it gave some folks the creeps. She straightened up as another customer entered. Probably nothing. Small towns love gossip. That night I couldn't sleep. Rain returned, gentler this time, tapping against my bedroom window like impatient fingers. Below me, those trunks waited. Evidence of unspeakable crimes. Proof that Howard Harmon was more than a peculiar old teacher. I needed to see inside the third trunk. The hardware store sold bolt cutters. Back in the basement, the heavy-duty lock surrendered with a sharp snap that echoed against the stone walls. I hesitated, heart pounding, before lifting the lid. No body parts. No horror beyond comprehension. Just hundreds of Polaroid photographs, meticulously organized by date. Women walking alone. Women through windows. Women unaware they were being observed. And among them, tucked between the creepy surveillance, were more personal items. Hair ribbons, earrings, lipsticks. Small things that could be taken without notice. At the very bottom lay a worn leather journal. The first entry was dated 20 years ago. Erga's returning. Medication not working. Need release. The following pages detail fantasies too disturbing to recount, evolving over years into plans, then into clinical descriptions of actual abductions. The final entry was dated just 3 days before I bought the house. Someone found the basement key. Not safe anymore. Must relocate operations. I closed the journal with shaking hands, suddenly aware of a draft where no draft should be. In the far corner of the basement, partially hidden behind an old shelving unit, was a door I had never noticed before. My phone flashlight revealed rough stone steps descending deeper than seemed possible for a house this size. The smell rising from below turned my stomach. Damp earth mixed with something metallic and organic. I took one step down, then another. The beam of light caught something reflective at the bottom. A metal table. Chains. Drains in the floor. Behind me, the basement door slammed shut. My heart nearly stopped as a voice called from upstairs. My neighbor, checking if I was home. He'd seen my lights on late and wanted to ensure I was okay after our conversation about Harmon yesterday. After he left, I sat on my kitchen floor until dawn, the journal clutched in my hands, unable to process what I discovered beneath my new beginning. The police came that morning. They're still excavating what they're calling the secondary basement. 3 bodies so far. They say there will be more. I'm staying with my sister now, unable to return to the house. The detective calls with updates I don't want but need to hear. Yesterday, he mentioned something that keeps me awake at night. Harmon's family emergency was false. No records show him leaving town. No records show him anywhere. They haven't found him yet. But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I imagine him watching me from somewhere nearby, taking photographs, waiting patiently, because I've seen his trophies, read his journal, discovered his workshop, and in his world. That makes me the perfect next chapter. The boxes are unpacked, but the unease, it settles in, doesn't it? 7 new beginnings tainted by horrors old and new. Did any particular tale make you question the history of your own 4 walls? The true terror of a new house is the discovery that you are not its first, nor perhaps its only occupant. And the most chilling revelation is often that some legacies are best left undisturbed. Which story shadows will follow you into your own rooms tonight? Voice your lingering fears, your own tales of unwelcome inheritances, in the comments below. Your disquiet finds a home here. If these chronicles of domestic terror have struck a chord deep within, then subscribe to Nightmare True Horror. Illuminate that button like a nervous flicker of a bedside lamp, and guide other seekers of the unsettling to our threshold. Until we meet again, and another for sale sign whispers of untold horrors. Lock your doors, and perhaps check the attic one more time.